Yeah, well, read The Australian tomorrow because I respond to Paul Kelly's claim. People think I want the Libs to somehow go to the far right. I don't. I'd actually like them just to come away from the left, back to the right, back to where they used to be. They've been a long way away from the right. They've left a space for Pauline Hanson. She has shifted to the centre-right middle to where, people like Howard and Tony Abbott prosecuted election wins from. And I think it's going to leave the Liberals, unfortunately, homeless unless they take this ground back, and they take it back on policy. It's not the revolving door of leadership that fixes a mess like this. And Dan, what worries me too, we've got 2 state elections coming up, one in South Australia, obviously one in Victoria, and Labor's going to spend big. And when the RBA governor talks about rampant out of control government spending, she's not just referring to Jim Chalmers and Jimflation. She's talking about the terrible debt in Victoria. And Labor here, under Jacinta Allen, will do what Dan Andrews did. They'll throw money at everything to try and win in November. That's the problem.
It is, and the same is the case in South Australia, where debt is ramping up big time, and big spending promises, particularly on housing, where Albanese was the other day to make another housing commitment on behalf of the long-suffering taxpayers of Australia. But obviously government spending is one of the key drivers of the inflationary problem we have. And we've talked about this a couple of times before. The only way the country is going to get out of these economic problems that we have is either through cutting spending or growing the economy. And this government does not have a growth agenda. It has a redistributionist agenda. It has no pro-economic growth policies whatsoever. Contrast that to Hawke and Keating, who, for all of the faults of their governments, at least understood that you've got to grow the economy, because if you grow the economy, you'll get more tax revenue without having to increase tax rates or introduce new taxes, because a bigger economy means you have a larger revenue base. So you're going to get more revenue. If you want to put that into spending, you can do it. If you want to put that into tax cuts, you can do it. Or if you want to pay down the debt, you can do it. So look, number one is to get the economy growing. But all this government is talking about is raising taxes and shifting deck chairs around the economic Titanic, rather than getting the whole ocean to float to a higher level, so everybody will benefit, and that's the issue we face.
And case in point, they're going to go after capital gains tax. None of the guys asked about it today from the Labor front bench could rule that out. They call it reform. It's never reform. They never grow the pie, as Dan's suggesting. They just carve it up a different way. And you at home who work really hard, particularly if you're middle class, you just get a smaller and smaller slice of that pie. And then we get that revelation too, James, about their net zero fund, a $5 billion fund, and the financing rate of return on projects is something like 1%. Like, it's just stuff that doesn't stack up commercially is now left for the poor old taxpayer to cover.
And, Peta, there's something really sinister going on here, because you can start to see some of the hints being dropped around what's going to come in that budget, not only with the non-answers from people today, but also some hints and some columnists who are connected more to Labor about what they're going after. They're going to go after capital gains tax rebates on investment properties and probably on the family home as well. They'll put some sort of indexation or threshold on it and call it fairness. And it actually ties in with these environmental funds, they're earning non-commercial rates of return, and the fact that they want they want your super now to start to invest in these things, that they call it a nation-building project, Peter, which of course means we're going to use your money to invest in some boondoggle that doesn't make money. Because in both circumstances, whether you have an investment property or a family home or a nice pile of super that you've worked hard to accumulate, it all comes back to the Albanese philosophy. And he can talk like a centrist all he wants, but this is the man who likes to fight Tories. And to him, a Tory is anybody who has put together some sort of investment portfolio, not having $100 million, not living in Point Piper next to Malcolm Turnbull, but just anybody who has got the sort of cash and wherewithal to take care of themselves. They hate that. That is what they're attacking here. It's not growing the pie so people are more self-sufficient. The only way Labor's fortunes go is if people are dependent on the government, and that's what all of this ties around to.
The whole philosophy is to drag everyone to the same level. Lowest common denominator, make you as dependent as possible on the state, and then you're beholden every election, whether you like it or not, to vote for Labor just to financially survive. That's the long game, and they're playing the Libs off a break. I'll leave it there, gents. Thank you, James and Dan Wild.